Hey there, how's it going? Welcome to Watersong's Workshop, the place where I work on my character ideas, try out art challenges, and try to make your day a little bit brighter. Welcome back! Thank you for your patience as I took a bit of a hiatus. Life got a little bit crazy. But I'm back now with a present for you. More fairies! Holiday style. Let's jump on in. Speaking of presents, let's start off with a toys and presents fairy. The idea for this fairy came from the most centralized idea for the holiday season, giving gifts. I wanted a fairy that really captures the spirit of the holidays, so I made a selfless gift giver with an obsession with glitter. I really wanted her design to play up the idea of gifts and toys, so I made her wings a sparkly bow, and I gave her a nutcracker outfit to mirror how the nutcracker was originally a gift for young Marie in the ballet. I also wanted to give her a bright and saturated color palette to give a fun and whimsical vibe to her personality. I like to imagine that she is the sort of fairy who brings the magic of the holidays by bringing gifts to children who need a thoughtful toy to brighten up their day. She'd also be known for throwing glitter everywhere, because that's the most magical thing. She may even be the equivalent of Santa in some fantasy realm. She's a kind, playful, and joyous fairy who wants nothing more than to bring joy and happiness to those around her. But yeah, here's my interpretation of a toys and presents fairy. Let's see what other fairies can bring some holiday cheer. This next one was an idea from a friend of mine that sounded so good I had to try it out. Back in September, I wanted to do a Halloween/fall themed fairy video, but unfortunately between life and artist block, drawing anything was hard. But I knew this theme could still work in the wintertime too. She had suggested a cottagecore theme, ergo, I give you a cottagecore fairy. Design-wise, I started this one when I was in an artistic slump, so the anatomy is a bit off, but I still love the concept, so I held on to it. I wanted to really lean into the warm fuzzy feels, so I gave her a faux fur coat dress with a cute bow knot and a shawl collar and some knitted leggings and a beanie. To lean even further into it, I gave her a mushroom staff, mushroom design wings, and some berries, pine cones, and pine needles thrown throughout. I kept the color palette muted and earthy for the woodsy vibes, but also kept some light colors for the wintry snow vibes. I'd like to imagine that this fairy has powers to preserve life during the winter. She can put small creatures to sleep so they can hibernate for the winter, and she can put a layer of ice over certain trees and plants to preserve them for a few months. She'd be a very shy and gentle fairy who lives in the cottage in the woods where travelers can come in and warm up for a spell, drinking some of her homemade wildberry and mushroom teas. But that's my concept for a cottagecore fairy. You know when kids have a little too much sweets and they go crazy and wild? Imagine a fairy who is constantly in that state of sugar high. And you got yourself the next idea, a candy fairy. I was tempted to make a sugar plum fairy, but I have no idea what a sugar plum actually is. So I thought something sweet would work just as well. I started my thought process for the design of this fairy with a gingerbread. I really wanted an apron made of gingerbread with some icing and gumdrop buttons, then a candy cane striped dress and gingerbread boots. I put some candy in her hair and around her mouth for that extra sugar hype, and finally I finished up her design with a cellophane candy wrapper pair of wings. I kept the color palette pretty close to the original colors of the candies. Personality-wise, this fairy is on a straight-up sugar high all day long, and when she crashes at night, she sleeps for 15 straight hours before repeating the cycle. I like to imagine that she has powers to make candy and sweets appear whenever she wants. I don't know if she's a good or a bad fairy, but she's certainly chaotic, and she'll bury you in a mountain of candy canes and lollipops if she thinks you look too sad. And that is my interpretation of a candy fairy. I'm going to start this one out by apologizing for my recording mistake. I forgot to push record before my sketch phase, but the end result is definitely worth it. This last fairy is the most magical and, in some places, the rarest fairy in this group. This is my interpretation of a snow fairy. When I think of wintertime and the holidays, snow is something I always want to see, so I figured she'd be a great addition to holiday-themed fairies. For her design, I wanted to make her as pretty as freshly fallen snow, so I gave her a white flowy dress that kind of reminds me of rolling snowy hills you could go sledding on, and a frilly blue and purple trim to try to emulate the aurora borealis. And of course her wings are made of snowflakes, which was difficult to figure out until I found a super helpful special ruler tool that mirrored my lines. As far as the color palette, I kept it as cool as possible to make her feel icy and wintry. Her skin tone I actually found on accident. I picked a base color to color over that wasn't gray because I didn't think you'd be able to see a big difference between the grays and the whites I was going to be using, so I picked a rich cool brown tone that worked beautifully with her white dress, and I just decided to leave the color how it was and then add a few red tones to make it more alive. This fairy brings snow and or ice with her wherever she goes. The more emotional she becomes, the stronger the weather becomes. She's very classy and kind for the most part, but when she is messed with, she will stand up for herself, and she will be heard. And that's my interpretation of a snow fairy. So what did you all think of this set of fairies? Let me know what sort of fairy you would have made in the comments. Also, let me know if there are any challenges you'd like for me to try. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a happy holiday season, keep being fantastic, and I'll see you around. She had suggested I wanted to really lean into the warm fuzzy feels, so I gave her a faux fur coat. I kept the color palette muted and girthy. Earthy?